My name is Jackson Caesar. I'm originally from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Currently I live in Washington, D.C., the nation's capital. My music career began the fall of 2009, and I've been singing professionally ever since. A friend of mine introduced me to the music of Roland Hayes. His name is, he's now retired, Dr. William B. Garcia. He was the music director at Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, and he asked me over the phone, he was like, "So have you heard of a singer by the name of Roland Hayes?" And I was like, "I'm not really sure." And he says, "Well, there's a song that he does that's called Little Boy." And he says, "You really should sing that song."
Little boy, how old are you? Little boy, how old are you? Say, little boy, how old are you? Sir, I'm only 12 years old.
At the time I was taking voice lessons at the University of District of Columbia with Nelda Orman. And so I brought the songbook to her, and she says, "Oh, Roland Hayes, yes, I know Roland Hayes." Again, I'm thinking, who is this Roland Hayes? And so she selected 2 songs from the songbook. And from then on, she said, "You need to study Roland Hayes. You need to look into him, read up on him." So I took it upon myself to do that. And what a fascinating story. I was blown away when I found out that this man from Georgia, Calhoun, Georgia, and then all the way up to Chattanooga, Tennessee, and then to Boston, and then outside of the United States. Why did he get the opportunity to sing for kings and queens in Europe? What fascinated me about Roland Hayes was his story. Then it was the voice. And I know that's usually the other way around, it's the voice and then the story, but it was the story first. And then I said, well, let me figure out why. Let's try to figure out why he had so much to say through his music whenever he would perform. What I do know about Roland Hayes, and what I've read that many have always said, is that Roland Hayes was a storyteller. The unique thing about these spirituals are that they do tell a story, a great story. In fact, the collection of these spirituals, from the beginning to the end, they start out with the creation, and then they end up with the death, burial, and resurrection. This is the songbook that I have been using. 4 sections. The first section beginning with stories of the Old Testament. The second section are abstracts of the Old Testament and the New Testament. And the third section is the life of Christ, and the 4th section is the Passion. So I was like, well, this is interesting. I've never seen spirituals arranged in this way. He also described why he arranged the music the way he arranged it. One thing that I have not seen much of is a full recital by one composer or arranger as Roland Hayes. So my idea was to share the story, share the music of Roland Hayes, and do it just the way Roland Hayes intended throughout this songbook, in its sections. So I said, now how can I put together a full recital that's within an hour? I had to think, why would you come to this recital? What would captivate your attention in this recital? And I thought, what captivated me? The story of Roland Hayes. And I felt it's important that we know the story. What captivated me? The unique arrangements of the spirituals. Unheard of. What captivated me was the way he arranged them together, from the creation story to the resurrection. So my idea for this concert, I like to title it Spirituals, celebrating the music, life, and legacy of Roland Hayes. The way I've designed this program is pretty much like the songbook is designed. Now, in between the sections, I decided to share some words from Roland Hayes. I decided to also share some historical background about the African American music culture and African American history. This is what's lacking in our music curriculum with our schools. There's so much history that's lacking. Black History Month is not just for African Americans. It's for Americans because it happened here in America. So we need to talk about it. We need to address it. A lot of what belonged to us was taken away, We were deprived from so much. And so as much as we can to try to retrieve a lot of that information, Roland Hayes, coming from his words, and then because of his success, I think, yes, here's the key: share this story. So I designed the program to do just that, and it's just a fabulous story. You've got to check it out. And let me tell you, often I hear from people, I've never heard that song before. It's been a long time since I've heard that spiritual. Interesting, I didn't know that about Roland Hayes. Or they'll say, I didn't know that about American history. I never knew that. There's a richness in the African American heritage. There's a richness in the African American music heritage. Here's a fascinating story. I just love this story, so I have to share it. Roland Hayes was in Berlin, Germany. And the people did not appreciate him in the beginning. He was there to do his tour, and they hissed him, they threw things at him, and he stood there for 10 minutes. And he waited them out. And he stood there. And he says, and I stood there. And when they were quiet, he said, I decided to change my program. And so I began with Schubert's Du bist die Ruhe. And then there was silence. He captivated this audience. And there's even reports that some people were crying. They were in tears. Roland Hayes said, it was at that moment that I knew I had won. That story alone is a story of a sense of accomplishment for not only Roland Hayes, but for people like myself and for other aspiring musicians and singers. Just to say how he was able to communicate with them something familiar with their language, their tongue, and to sing it in a different way than what they're used to. Roland Hayes came from a place. He came from a place called the heart. He didn't just give you this beautiful sound. He wasn't governed by a standard of academia or formalities. He came from a place within, and that's what really moved people. I believe that that same place is my dwelling place. I like to sing from the heart. I like to connect with the text and pull the people in so that they say, yes, that's exactly how I feel. When you have a text that's describing a story about pain and suffering or love, I don't believe people really want to see just the beauty of the voice. I think they really want to get the passion of the voice, the passion of the music.
Ezekiel prophesied by the power of God, commanding the bones to rise.
My career also began pretty much like his. We're searching for an opportunity to share our talents and our gifts, and I've become a recitalist, I've become a concertist, where I'm touring on my own, actually doing fairly well with my tours. And I feel like that's the same thing that happened to Roland Hayes, that he was able to build his career as a solo artist. I believe he was one of the first entrepreneurs or a recitalist concert artist. I mean, he made $100,000 a year. That's why his story needs to be told. And I'm looking for my 100,000 so that I can be like, you know what, thank you, this torch has been passed. You'll know for sure. You gotta catch the tour. It's one of the most unique, fascinating recitals you'll ever attend, guaranteed.
The knee bone connected with the thigh.